Hey there, and welcome back to another My Hero Academia video. And today we're going to be talking about the latest episode to drop, episode 11, Dabi's Dance, which, yeah, it's just one massive bombshell of an episode. Massive moment after massive moment. And honestly, this season's just going from strength to strength. I'm enjoying it so far. But yeah, before we go any further, heavy spoilers for this one. Also, I would like to say that I have read the manga and I'm aware of any relevant future plot points and details. But for the purpose of these reviews, I like to approach things from a more anime-centered perspective, so that anime-only fans can watch along and join in too. And so, with all that being said, let's jump into the episode. So we start off the episode before the intro plays with a cold open on a mysterious hero on an aircraft, slowly making his way towards the battle zone. And they purposefully don't show his face, but I'm thinking the belt buckle that says BJ gives away who this is. Also the fully denim suit. Also a BJ belt buckle. Come on. Anyway, the intro then plays, and we return to the action from last episode, where Deku managed to overcome All For One in the Vestige Realm and prevent his quirk getting stolen. Anyway, both our combatants look pretty wrecked, and surely Deku cannot fight again after this. Surely he's done. And they both start falling to earth, with Deku's shattered limbs flopping in the wind. Shoto continues to prove he's a relentless Chad by picking up Deku as well as the other two he already had, and like I said before, this dude does not have a strength quirk. And so he lands, and it's not looking good. Bakugo's alive but bleeding out, Endeavor's worse for wear, and Deku's broken. So Shoto's the only hero left at 100% at this stage, and yet Shigaraki, or All For One, attempting to wear Shigaraki like a skin suit, is still capable of moving. But at the same time, they're struggling for control. Shigaraki seems to want to keep fighting, whereas All For One wants to dip and come back to fight another day. And honestly, that would probably be wise, as after all, Nejire and Ida then turn up to bolster our hero team, with Nejire's quirk doing a little bit of damage to Shigaraki and shattering his spider legs. Although, like Ida says, Gigantomachia's arrival is imminent, so things are going to go from bad to worse very soon. And so, since his regeneration seems to be weakening, Shoto decides to press the attack and try to finish off Shigaraki now, which, honestly, it should be possible. Shoto has the same level of firepower as Endeavor, I think. Although, obviously, he's not as refined or developed just yet. But I think if he did an all-out attack, he could do some serious damage, especially since Endeavor and Deku already softened him up so much. And honestly, I kind of wish we got a lot more of Nejire and Shoto versus Shigaraki before the big man arrives. Would have been nice to get a bit of spotlight for them fighting the main villain properly. But instead, we cut over to Uraraka and Toga for the conclusion of their fight, and yeah, it's not really a true battle per se, but more a showcase of character development. I think a big part of Uraraka's arc was that she was falling behind where she wanted to be. And so she put her feelings and teenage angst into a box and tried to focus on being the best hero she could. And that's what we see here. Despite Toga trying to engage with her, to talk about Deku, to get inside her head, Uraraka is able to use her quirk to her advantage and ignore it to almost score the win. And in the end, it's kind of her that gets inside Toga's head, telling her that she should be shutting down her dark feelings. And that since she doesn't, and chooses to live her life hurting others, she needs to accept the consequences of that. And so, Toga goes for the kill shot, because she spent all this time wanting to talk, obviously not going all out, only to be confronted with rejection, causing her to snap. But luckily, Froppy's there for the intercept. They then do an amusing play on the Call Me Sue gag, but this time, don't call me Sue because you're a serial killer freak, before they're distracted by Gigantomachia running past, which gives Toga time to dip, and thus gives her a moment to reflect on what's happened. And honestly, I get there are more important story threads, but I do feel like this battle could have been fleshed out a little bit more. It feels a little incomplete. We then cut back to the main battle, where just as it looks like we're going to get that clash that I was hoping for earlier, Gigantomachia appears ready to battle. And he's super excited to see his master again, and so All For One prepares to give him the order to grab him and retreat, only for our two heroes to actually team up after all and hit him with the big KO attack. And yeah, scratch what I said. This is actually what I was looking for. I'd kind of forgotten they actually managed to hit him. And so, yeah, I wish there was more of it, but I did enjoy them attacking him. And even though they then get attacked by Gigantomachia and knocked away immediately, I did like that they actually managed to hurt Shigaraki. They managed to defeat him with their attack. So they technically get the victory, even though Deku and Endeavor did do most of the work. But still, it's not like Manuel or Rocklock was going to be able to hit him hard enough to take him down, so they still look powerful from this. Meanwhile, Bakugo decides he wants to keep fighting, which is like, sure, he's only been impaled like 3 times. He'll just walk it off, he'll be fine. These kids are hardcore. Meanwhile, I step on a splinter and I'm out for the count. Hell, they even say that his organs were hit. So this dude's there, with ruptured organs, saying he still wants to get back out there and fight. He wants the complete victory. Mad lad. Anyway, on the ground, Endeavor's also doing pretty shit. Apparently one of his lungs has been crushed, so that's lovely. And yet he still needs to keep fighting, as there's a bunch of new villains for him to face off with, including Dabi, who of course notices him standing there and begins to celebrate, pouring water on his black hair, which is revealed to actually be white. And thus he says, in response to Endeavor calling him Dabi, that his name is Toya Todoroki, Endeavor's eldest son, finally confirming, at least for anime onlys, one of the oldest theories in the show. Anyway, whilst this is going on, Skeptic hacks into the satellite feed to broadcast Dabi's message across Japan and on the internet to tell the story of Toya, how he'd been born of a quirk marriage, how he's killed up to 30 innocent people, and that his father had really driven him to insanity. He was trained, but ultimately abandoned and forgotten in favour of training Shoto, who he abused. And yeah, this whole scene, deeply epic. They intercut it with shots of his mum watching the broadcast, and yeah, this is not going to be good for her mental health. And they also intercut it with the carnage the Gigantomachia has wrought. Ruins and corpses and blood. Whew, this episode's hitting hard. We then return to the battle zone, where Dabi gives a really well-voiced monologue where he calls out Endeavor for everything he's done, telling him how he planned on killing Shoto right as he became a true hero, just to ruin all of Endeavor's hopes and dreams. But then, when Endeavor did become the #1 hero, he knew that he needed to act faster, and he decided to target Endeavor specifically, not just Shoto. He reveals that he's currently ruining Endeavor's reputation, and that all of Endeavor's attempts to atone are ultimately meaningless. The past doesn't die, and he's here for revenge, so basically he wants to kill him and ruin his name, ensuring that forever he'll be remembered as a monster who caused his own disgrace and death. And so, he asks his father if he'll come dance in hell with him. Pretty cold line, and yeah, very epic. Before we cut to a flashback that gives a bit of a recap of Toya's life from Endeavor's perspective. We learn that Toya burnt to death, and all they found was a small fragment of his jawbone. Further back, we see that Endeavor and Toya were very close, and his training methods were far different to those he inflicted on Shoto. He seems to be a doting father, and whilst he would have liked a child with the mixed quirk, he was happy with his fire son and his ice daughter. But on the other hand, we see that Toya didn't have the resistance to fire like Endeavor did, which in turn meant his own quirk would slowly hurt him. And so obviously it was all destined to end in heartbreak. Back in the present, Endeavor has a brief moment of denial before Toya presses on, telling him he's already had a paternity test done with Endeavor's blood. He goes on to show an image of Hawks killing twice, just to shake the public's faith in Endeavor even more, as this is the actions of his closest ally. Therefore, how can you trust the man himself? He also reveals that Hawks killed Best Jeanist in order to infiltrate their organization, and that his father was a criminal who was apprehended by Endeavor. And yeah, I'd assume the public's response to this is going to be highly mixed. And I also really love that they showed the whole family, the whole Todoroki family, reacting to this broadcast. Like, imagine that. Imagine going through your life only to see your supposedly dead brother/son post his terrorist manifesto online and play it on TV. Yikes indeed. And then once again, we just get great voice performances all round. Toya charges Endeavor, ready to hit him with a prominence burn to end it once and for all, while Shoto screams at his dad to do something, anything, trying to snap him out of his shock. And just as the attack is about to be unleashed, Best Jeanist arrives with the save, wrapping up all the villains in cables. And yeah, that would have been such a crazier moment if they hadn't had that cold opening beforehand telling us he was coming. Although, it was still very epic. And I mean, honestly, this whole episode was just pure epic. It oozes epic. Great developments. The reveal was intense and dramatic. The voice performances were top tier. It was beautiful. And we're promised even more next time with the addition of Bakugo's hero name. So yeah, every episode's just massive moment after massive moment these days. They're not playing around anymore. And so yeah, that's the end of the episode and the end of the video. And I would like to remind you that these have just been my opinions, and I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? Like it, hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know.